Dune 2 very specifically repeated a LOTR feat at the Oscars 2025, but don't expect Dune 3 to copy Return of the King's sweep. Dune Part 2 followed in the Lord of the Rings footsteps at the 97th Academy Awards, but Dune 3 is unlikely to repeat the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King's Awards success. Denis Villeneuve's adaptations of Frank Herbert's classic science fiction novel have been well received, with Dune Part 2 reviews being particularly stellar. This positive reception translated into recognition at the Academy Awards, as Dune received 10 nominations and Dune Part 2 received 5 nominations. Long before Villeneuve's take on Dune, Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings movies took popular culture by storm. Each installment in the trilogy was a critical and commercial success, and the movies are still widely admired more than 2 decades later. At the time, the movie's success led to Return of the King winning a staggering 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. As anticipation for the release of Dune 3 builds, there are inevitably comparisons between the two fantasy and science fiction franchises, especially after Dune Part 2's Academy Awards wins. Dune 2 won the exact same Oscars as The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Both Dune Part 2 and The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Dune Part 2 won Best Sound, and The Two Towers won Best Sound Editing. At the time, Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing were 2 separate categories, but they were later combined into the single category of Best Sound. It is an intriguing coincidence that the second installment in both the Dune and the Lord of the Rings trilogies walked away with the exact same awards. Despite the positive reception, these second movies received fewer nominations than their predecessors. Dune had double the number of Dune Part 2's nominations. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring more than doubled The Two Towers' number of nominations, with Fellowship of the Ring garnering 13 and The Two Towers having 6. This is arguably not a reflection of Dune Part 2 and The Two Towers' quality, but instead has more to do with the Academy Awards aversion to sequels and franchises. Through 2 movies, Dune has more Oscars than The Lord of the Rings. When comparing Dune and Dune Part 2 to Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, Dune has more Academy Award wins. In addition to Dune Part 2's 2 Oscar wins, Dune won Best Music, Original Score, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, and Best Visual Effects. Along with The Two Towers' 2 wins, The Fellowship of the Ring won Best Music, Original Score, Best Cinematography, Best Makeup, and Best Visual Effects. 2 movies in, this puts Dune at 8 Oscar wins compared to The Lord of the Rings' 6 wins. In both cases, the first of the 2 movies won the majority of the awards, although Dune was more dominant than The Fellowship of the Ring. This would seemingly indicate a downward trajectory, with the third movie receiving even fewer nominations and wins than the second. Return of the King's 11-win sweep ensured that this would not be the trajectory, as a total of 17 Academy Awards became part of the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy's enduring legacy. Why Dune 3 is unlikely to repeat Return of the King's Oscars sweep. Any movie matching Return of the King's 11 Academy Award wins would be a difficult feat. Return of the King was an epic movie that had the rare ability to resonate strongly with critics and general audiences. While Dune 3 will undoubtedly have an epic scale and be another quality adaptation from Villeneuve, it is unlikely to be as well received by audiences and critics. Dune 3's weird moments, as seen in Herbert's novel Dune, Messiah, will probably lead to a more divisive response, and the weirdness may even be too much for the Academy Awards. Return of the King's 11 wins were partly in recognition of the entire trilogy's groundbreaking success, with Dune and Dune Part 2 adapting a single novel and Dune 3 adapting a story that takes place 12 years later. It is not a conventional movie trilogy compared to The Lord of the Rings. Academy voters may not feel the need to give Dune 3 recognition for the entire trilogy. Dune 3 will definitely be a successful movie, but it probably will not reach the same heights Return of the King did at the Academy Awards.